Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Alright, so today we are featuring Dewgong. Now, I don't really need to do much of an introduction. Many of you have probably seen a Dewgong if you battle in Go Battle League. If you're watching this video, it's very likely you've seen the thickest boy or girl in all of the land. Actually, one of the thickest. It's obscenely powerful and also obscenely expensive because in order to get a Dewgong for Go Battle League or just PvP in general, you have to either one, have a legacy one, or spend 2 elite TMs minimum. That makes Dewgong one of the most expensive Pokemon of all time to build. However, it's totally worth it because, like I mentioned, it's thick. She is thick. Look at that defense. Look at that stamina. It is thick. It's a very thick and tanky mon. It also has a great move pool and very few weaknesses because of its typing. So, as you see here, actually it has a lot of weaknesses compared to its resistances, but that's just because of the ice and water typing. So, the thing about ice is that ice actually gives you more weaknesses than resistances. However, the water typing here helps, as you see here, because Dewgong actually isn't weak to fire. Fire does neutral damage. And also, in this cup, as you see here, you're weak to electric, fighting, grass, and rock. Now, those are very prevalent in this cup. You'll see a lot of them running around, especially like pseudo fighters. However, the thing about it is Dewgong is so obscenely thick that it can literally it can tank a ton of damage. There's like no like super nuke moves from any of these unless it's like Frenzy Plant or Wild Charge. But even then, like Dewgong can still live a Wild Charge or a Frenzy Plant just because of how, like I said, how thick it is. You do double resist ice. So Frostless, if you Frostless's avalanches, those weather balls, etc. from Abomasnow, and also water type damage like Water Gun from Lantern or Hydro Pump, you do have some resistances in this meta. Now, like I mentioned, it's one of the most expensive mons in all of the land because you need at the minimum 2 or 3 elite TMs. The reason being is because you need Ice Shard. Ice Shard is one of the fastest charging moves in the game. It allows you to charge quickly to get to its second really expensive move known as Icy Wind. Icy Wind, it allows you to debuff. It debuffs your opponent. Most of you have probably been debuffed by an Icy Wind at one point in your Go Battle League careers. And it also has Aqua Jet. And so Water Pulse can... So you don't really need Aqua Jet. The thing about Aqua Jet is that Aqua Jet, like, costs the same energy. Like, not... I don't think the same energy. I have to look it up, but... I think Aqua Jet's a low energy, much lower energy than Water Pulse, so you can get more Aqua Jets off than Icy Winds. So Aqua Jet can come in clutch if you're 1 HP in a dream and all you need to do is land that one move. And your opponent's like, it's for example like an Alolan Marowak or let's see, a Talonflame, something of that sort. If you need to land an Aqua Jet and you're like a little bit behind because of Water Pulse's cost, like you can clutch the win from that match. But as I mentioned, Dewgong is obscenely expensive. Very hard to find. Not really that hard to find because it's had plenty of events. But if you don't have one now, it's not worth it to build for the Holiday Cup. There's other substitutes you can do for Dewgong. Alright, here are the PvPoke.com rankings. And we go down here. As you see, Dewgong ranks at number 14. So it's actually ranked pretty high. As you see, Dewgong has a very unique role in this cup. It's able to take out Wigglytuff, which is probably your most prominent Charmer you'll see. So it's able to take out the Charmers. It's also able to take out the ground types like Diggersby and Stunfisk because ground's weak to ice. Of course, you're going to be able to take out Altaria because it's double weak to ice. And you take out Skarmory. So you take out the Flyers, it takes out the ground types, it also can take out the Charmers, which makes it really good. And just because it loses to Vigoroth, Alolan Marowak, and Obstagoon, Alolan Graveler, etc., that doesn't mean you can't create plays by debuffing them. Because it has Icy Wind allows you to create a lot of plays and pivot out of things. So if you're locked into a bad match with Dewgong's probably going to load up on energy or make you sit there for a very long time until it decides you want to die, and then it's just going to load up a bunch of energy to throw at the next matchup. With this ability to debuff, it very much efficiently forces your opponent to switch if they're debuffed enough. Like a triple debuff like Alolan Marowak isn't going to stay into a matchup with something it's either weak against or it's like it can't deal a lot of damage. These Icy Winds debuffing does stack up. If you've seen boosts like Obstagoon or Togekiss for Ancient Power, it's +2. A -2 has the same effect, but it allows you to basically create more. It's gonna flip matchups. Icy Wind lets you flip matchups. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Dewgong is great as a lead. As you see here, it's a very great lead. Great as a switch as well, because the thing about it is, like I mentioned, if you switch into a bad matchup, you could still debuff your opponent, and your opponent's kind of locked into whatever comes in next. So whatever comes in next can either farm down, or you can create some other plays. That's why it's still really good as a switch. Not really as a closer. Unfortunately, as a closer, I wouldn't recommend Dewgong, just because even though it's super thick and it can give you a problem, the thing about Dewgong is that there's a lot of things in this meta that can hit you with like super effective damage. For example, Obstagoon has Cross Chop, Alolan Graveler has Rock Blast, and Obama Snow has Energy Ball. As thick as Dewgong is, if it's hit with a super effective move, it's still going to hurt a lot. So you want to avoid the closing scenario. Or give it shield advantage, either one. As you see, it ranks at number 14 overall. Powerful lead. If you scroll down and go to here. As you see, Dewgong is most powerful in the lead. Its powerful lead ranking at number 19. As you see, taking on Flyers, the Ice types before, as I mentioned. On the closer is its weakest position. I have to search for it because it's not a good closer, like I mentioned. It's still able to beat Altaria, Diggersby, Stunfisk, Wigglytuff, and Alolan Sandslash. Ironically, it's still able to beat A-Slash just because of Icy Wind and just because of Water Pulse, basically. And you basically resist Alolan Sandslash to oblivion because you resist the Power Snows. You also resist those Ice Punches. And Bulldoze does hit you, but it doesn't hit you that hard because Dewgong's thick. As I mentioned, Dewgong is also a fantastic switch, ranking at number 7. Very powerful switch. As you see, you take out what I mentioned before. Flyers, Ground types, and the Charmer. Alright, as I say time and time again, here's ppoke.com. If you'd like to donate, please do so. It's a wonderful website, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without it. So please consider donating. As you see, I have Dewgong here with Icy Wind Water Pulse. I also have the Icy Wind Water Aqua Jet variation. So we're going to see if there is a difference between these two movesets. Is it worth to use 3 Elite TMs or 2 Elite TMs? That sounds really bad, but you know what? This is for science. And this is so that the Matrix, so that we can see what we win and what we lose against. I already have the Holiday Cup meta to the right. I have the 2 shield. We're going to run the 2 shield. And as we mentioned, Dewgong's the best in the lead and the closer. As you see here, you're able to beat Abomasnow, Altaria. Dewgong's going to be a weird matchup because you're going to... If you get into a mirror with a Dewgong, just be prepared to spend a very long time Icy winning each other to death. No, seriously, that's what it's going to be. As you see, you beat Diggersby, you beat Dripling because it's a flyer. You also beat Frostless. Frostless, you are able to debuff, not only debuff Frostless, however, you're also able to resist its Avalanche and Power Snows. You actually double resist it. So, you take the threat. Shadow Ball's still going to hurt, so you still have to be aware of it, but you do beat it in 2 shield. As you see here, you win with the Water Pulse. You don't win with the Aqua Jet. So, this is kind of a key matchup to look out for. I'm not sure why you lose with Aqua Jet. I think you lose with Aqua Jet because Aqua Jet just doesn't do enough damage. Yeah, Aqua Jet just doesn't do enough damage. As you see here, you just straight Aqua Jet. But I'm pretty sure if you Icy Wind in this scenario, like if you double Icy Wind to debuff it, then you could take it out. But either way, Aqua Jet's still like a risky. Yeah. Yeah, what if you Icy Wind? Yeah. So let's flip this around. Actually, I'm just curious. So this is for science. So go into sandbox mode, do this number, do Icy Wind. So have them block your Icy Winds if you can double bait with Icy Wind. So what I would do is I'll show Aqua Jet and then Icy Wind. As you see, you can win as long as you double Icy Wind like this. It's kind of weird, but like, yeah, you'll double Icy Wind. You'll double Icy Wind, you'll hit it, and then you can Aqua Jet. Okay, there you go. See. So you could take out you pretty much win. You can win this as you see here, because you could debuff them. Well, it's a very baity matchup with Frostless if you have Aqua Jet. So you can still win. It's not as horrible as 458. You're gonna lose against Galvantula because it's electric type. Alolan Graveler is gonna chuck rocks at you. Same thing with Lantern because of the spark. It's also resistant to all of your moves. Any water type will pretty much not wall Dewgong, but it's going to be really strong. As you see here, you do beat the spark, but this is what I mean. You beat Lantern with Water Gun because you resist Water Gun. You just have to be careful. You do lose against Lapras because of Skull Bash. With Skull Bash, Lapras does win the mirror. So anything that can, with Skull Bash, Lapras wins mirror. Of course, Magnezone's going to beat you because Wild Charge hurts. As you see here, you beat Mantis Flower. You also beat Alolan Marowak. Now, the thing about AWAC is that you win with the Water Pulse version, you don't win with the Aqua Jet version. So it doesn't look like Aqua Jet doesn't do enough in the 2 shield to make it matter. However, you do win against Alolan Sandslash, you also win against Skarmory, you also win against Snorlax, Stunfisk, and Talonflame. Now, you kind of have to watch out for the Pseudo Fighters. As you see, you're going to lose against Obstagoon and Vigoroth. This isn't a horrible rating. As you see, your 496 isn't a bad rating. Viggy, I'm not sure why you have a stronger rating with Viggy, but like the thing about it is, it's just like the pseudo counter users, they charge fast and they hurt. As you see, it's still gonna take 3 body slams to kill you, but it still does a lot of damage. So just keep that in mind. You're gonna come out of this and Viggy will have a move ready, so just be careful. If you have energy advantage, for example, you start with 10 energy, you can make this closer. So let's do this. Let's go to the advanced options. So if you start with 10 energy, which is just basically 1 ice shard ahead, you could probably make this a little closer. No, not sandbox mode. Alright, so we did 10 HP. Okay, and then battle. Oh, you actually win! Okay! So the thing about... So you can actually... Well, that's dependent if you... So if you have energy lead and you can beat the shields, you can actually beat, like, Viggy. So you could beat Viggy as long as you have energy lead. So these matchups are close. They're not horrible, but they're close with Viggy and Obstagoon. It just really depends on on what the scenario is. Of course, the good thing is you're gonna beat both Charmers. You will beat Whimsicott and Wigglytuff, so that's a good plus. All right, we did the 2 shield. Here's the 1 shield. As you see in the 1 shield, you're gonna lose against Bama, unfortunately, because like I mentioned, you kind of need shields and you don't want to eat super effective damage. You'll still beat Altaria. You'll beat Diggersby and Drifblim, of course. You lose against Frostless convincingly without 2 shields this time, because Frostless is a beast and those Shadow Balls are going to hurt, and it does resist your Ice Shards. So 2 shield you win, 1 shield you do not. Galvantula, of course, all these other picks, Lantern, etc., are going to beat you just because they hit hard with Thunderbolt, or they have a super effective attack. Or it's Lapras where it has an answer out because of Skull Bash. Because of Skull Bash, Lapras will beat you. The ones is where you don't want to be with Dewgong, or you want try not to go into the 1 shield. The 2 shields is definitely Dewgong's best bet. In the 1 shield that you see against any matchup, it does falter. You beat Mandibuzz, of course, because it's a flower. You also still beat Alolan Sandslash. You beat Skarmory, you beat Stunfisk. You'll lose against Snorlax this time around because Superpower does hurt. Even if you don't get hit by Superpower, Snorlax is pretty thick, so it can bait you and it can take you out. So just be careful. You will lose against Talonflame, ironically, because of Talonflame's typing, it is fire and flying. So it is your Ice Shards do neutral damage. So as you see here, Talonflame is able to hit you really hard with those flame charges. It can just beat you. It can hit you with a flame charge. Well, actually, I think this is a bait-dependent match. If you call the flame charge, you can eat the flame charge. But if you get hit with the burb, you die. So it's still a very risky matchup. Burb will kill you. So just be careful of Talonflame. Also, you're going to lose against the Pseudo Fighters because Pseudo Fighters hurt. Those counters you still hurt, but you still beat the Charmers, which is really good. The thing about the Holiday Cup is there's a lot. Charmers really do run rapid, so how Dewgong being able to beat them is really, really good. Alright, now we pulled the 0 shield. As you see, the closer is Dewgong's worst position. You do not want to be in here. As you see, the 0s are very similar to the 1s. As you see, you beat Altaria, Diggersby, Drifblim. So the first half is very similar to the 1 shield. Actually, it's pretty similar to the 1 shield. If you look at the closing scenario, you pretty much lose against what you beat. I think Talonflame, you're able to convincingly beat Talonflame, though. So, Talonflame, with this, you should be able to just Aqua Tail it down, I believe. Yeah, you could just Water Pulse. So, you could just hit it with a Water Pulse, and then you win. So, this matchup right here, as you see, you're able to hit it with the Water Pulse, and then that's GG's. Aqua Jet doesn't do enough. So, you're able to flip the Snorlax matchup with Aqua Tail, but given the fact that you have to spend an extra Elite TM, that's all you do. So, you don't need to use Aqua Jet, isn't really needed. As you see here, you're able to beat Talonflame anyways. You flip the Talonflame without Aqua Tail, so you might as well not use it. But like I said, it's not worth the third Elite TM, as we've analyzed. Now in the 1 shield, you can beat a Alolan Marowak, but you lose in the 0 just because Shadow Bone hurts, especially if they get the debuff. You're gonna lose against the Pseudo Fighter still, but you still beat the Charmer. So you still, like I said, very similar to the 1 shield, only flipping a few matchups. The most relevant one being probably Snorlax with Aqua Jet versus the Water Pulse variation. Now, if we have shield advantage, 1 to 0s, Dewgong is very powerful. As you see here, Dewgong is able to take out a lot of meta picks, and you're able to flip matches that you normally lose against. As you see, you beat Bama, you beat Diggersby, you beat Frostus convincingly in the 1 to 0s. You also are able to beat Alolan Graveler because you're able to hit it with a Water Pulse in the 1 to 0s. So Water Pulse does heavy damage, and you're able to take out Alolan Graveler. You still lose against Lapras, Magnezone, and Lantern with Spark, unfortunately, just because you're able to beat the Water Gun, however. And you're able to beat a slew of Pokemon in the 1 to 0s. In the 1 to 0s, you can flip the Pseudo Fighter matchups. As you see, you beat all the Pseudo Fighters. You beat pretty much 1/2 of the entire, like, most of the meta in the 1 to 0s. Other than, like, what you're obscenely weak to, like Magnezone and Galvantula. So basically, like, electric types. But the 1 to 0s, Dewgong's very strong, and you're able to flip those fighter matchups, which is really good. It's good that you're able to flip a negative matchup like that, especially since Dewgong's heavy weakness seem to be either electric types, Lapras, or pseudo fighters. In the 2 to 0s, Dewgong beats everything but Dewgong itself and Lantern with Spark and Lapras. So Lapras effectively, Lapras hardwalls you just because it resists you so hard. As you see, Lapras does wall you. You can see Lapras around here. As long as you don't get it locked into Lapras, you should be okay. Just be careful. So that's the thing about Lapras. Just be very careful about Lapras. And Dewgong doesn't have a secondary move that covers anything other than, like, Ice and Water. So it doesn't have anything other than Ice or Water type attack. So, unfortunately. Unless Shadow Dewgong comes out and then you have Return Dewgong running rampant. Then that'll be a lot interesting. Anyway, so if you go to 2 to 1s, if you have shield advantage, as you see here, if you have shield advantage, you're able to flip Galvantula and Alolan Graveler. You still flip Alolan Graveler, you still flip Galvantula, you still lose against Lapras, Magnezone, and Lantern, but you beat the majority of the meta. Now for Viggy, it's a simultaneous knockout, as you see here, but this is really IV, but this is IV dependent with Vigoroth, as you see here. I believe if you have a good IV, so let's pull this sim up real quick. So this is a Vigoroth right here. So with Vigoroth, here's what happens. If I have a good IV Dewgong, which is like 0-15-15 or 0-15-13, something like that. Or 0-15-12? Yeah, 0-15-12, something. Let's say that. Because it's... Bam. See? So you'll live with like 35 HP. So this matchup is very IV dependent, as you see here. Also, a Dewgong with good IVs is going to, like, a Dewgong with good IVs is very prevalent in this meta. As you see, the sim we're running for the 0s or the 2 to 1s has an IV of 5, 14, 10. So on the technical summary, we'll go over it, and we'll go over I'll add on, and then we'll just do a quick scan of the IV difference. But as you see here in the 2 to 1, you're still able to beat a majority of your matchups. You're able to beat the Charmers, you're able to beat Obstagoon, and you can beat Vigoroth as well. So there's IV to that's the thing about Dewgong. Like I mentioned, because Dewgong's hard to, there's a lot of Dewgong in a while. It's a little hard to find, though, for a good IV one. So, but if you have a good IV one, it could do really well in this meta. As you see here, in the 2 to 1s, you still do very well against majority of the meta. Be careful of Magnezone, though. You're able to flip Gall, but I think Magnezone just yeets you just because it's so strong. As you see here, Wild Charge hurts a lot. And unless it's the 2 to 0s, you don't really stand much. It will put heavy bait pressure on you because one Wild Charge does so much damage. As you see here, one Wild Charge does more than half, almost 90, almost like, I would say, yeah, it does more than half. So you have to be really careful about getting hit by a Wild Charge. So if I had to give Dewgong, I'd actually give Dewgong a 9.5 out of 10. That seems like, why don't I just give it a 10 out of 10? Okay, so the reason I give it a 9.5 is because literally the only matchup that really stands out is the Lapras matchup. You're gonna lose against Golf, you're gonna lose against Graveler, but because you get essentially hardwalled by Lapras, I can't give Dewgong a perfect rating, but I give it a really high rating because it does beat a lot of matchups. Dewgong gives you a lot of play, especially with Icy Wind. It can give you a lot of play. Also, as you see here, if you have a good IV Lapras, your ratings, as you see here, if you go over here, you flip the Viggy matchup. So you normally would lose the 2 shield, but if you have a good IV one, you can flip a pseudo fire matchup. So with Dewgong's ability to do this, if you have a good IV one, it's very tanky, and like I said, Icy Wind gives you a lot of play. Because of Dewgong's bulk, it gives you a lot of options to basically flip a lot of matchups. And as you see here, if you have a good IV one, you can flip relevant matchups. You flip the Alolan matchups and Alolan Marowak matchup in the one shield. You also flip the Talonflame matchup. So a good IV Dewgong serves you well. A good IV Dewgong, the better IV Dewgong will also win in the mirror. So that there's not a lot of mons where literally, like, just because you have a good IV one, it does so much work. And during here, you flip very relevant matchups. In the zeros, you can actually beat Galvantula with a good IV, and you can actually, well, yeah, you can beat Galvantula, and you beat Talonflame, and you can beat Vigoroth. So you flip relevant matchups with a good IV, Dewgong. That's really good. That's why I give it a 9.5. It's able to take out it beats all the Charmers. It beats Charmers convincingly. It beats out majority of the Flyers in most scenarios, and it's able to flip its negative matchups. That's why I give it such a high rating. The only reason I can't give it a perfect rating is because Lapras. If you do happen to get a Lapras matchup, it is an auto loss because Lapras is really strong. Even if you have a huge energy lead, Lapras with Skull Bash will still destroy you just because it does wall you. And Lapras and Dewgong are both not equally as thick, but because of their typings, both being Ice and Water, it does effectively wall you. So I can't give it a 10 out of 10. But as I said, Dewgong is very thick, very bulky. Good IV is able to flip a good IV can flip matchups. It's versatile. Icy Wind gives you a lot of play, and because of its ability to flip negative matchups in certain scenarios, which aren't even really hard to manipulate. For example, you can get into the 2-1s or the 1-0s if you were willing to sacrifice your other two mons. And Dewgong is a very powerful lead and switch. If you do happen to win the lead with Dewgong, you can debuff whatever switches in, and then you can switch out and create more plays. That's why Dewgong is very powerful. Anyways, if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. If you do like Dewgong, it's looking really good for the Holiday Cup. So good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you on the next video.